we did mention it's a big final tomorrow. Leinster taking on the Bulls. I am joined in studio by commentator, journalist and analyst Khanyiso Tshwaku. And all the way from Dublin, we are joined by Michael Vlismas. A very good morning to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And Michael, I want to start with you because you look at how the Bulls are going into this final. Following last season's loss against Glasgow, Coach Jake White and his troops will certainly be looking to secure themselves a victory and lift their first URC trophy in the current form.
Absolutely, I think they're very aware that they've had chances in the past, and I think this is a different Vodacom Bulls team this season. They, chatting to Ruan Nortje earlier, and he was saying that the group is very close, has grown very tight, and believes that they're playing for something bigger than just the trophy on Saturday. There's talk in the camp of making memories and sort of cementing what this group has been building towards ever since Jake White took over at the Vodacom Bulls about 4 seasons ago. So there is a sense that they've been building towards this moment. They've had their opportunities, but I think there's a quiet confidence in the camp at the moment that they're a lot better prepared for this final.
Indeed, and we talk about better prepared. We look at a Leinster side that they come up against, Khanyiso. So let's speak about where the final is taking place. Historic venue. What does this mean for the Irish Leinster side to play the final there? And do you think it gives them a little bit more of a boost in terms of just that confidence and momentum?
Firstly, the capacity difference between the Aviva Stadium and the Croke Park is equal to 30,000. So you're looking at a bigger crowd that will be attending. Also remember that Croke Park is the site of the 1921 Bloody Sunday, where the IRA at the time, led by Michael Collins, had an insurrection against the English at the time. And then the English, the Black and Tans, they called them, then perpetuated a massacre at a Gaelic football game. So it is a stadium of very nationalistic importance for the Irish. Is Croke Park. I mean, remember in 2007 when they needed to play England there, it was quite a debate whether should they play England, but they didn't have another venue because at the time Lansdowne Road was being renovated into what it is now. But I think what they will try to do, especially for Leinster, is that they've got to a first URC final in the current form, and the Bulls have been the one team that has stood in the way. Remember that in the 2021-22 season, the Bulls went and won in Dublin, won at the RDS, and then when Leinster came down last season, they were beaten at Loftus Versfeld. So there is a very big score to settle for Leo Cullen's side, and I think they've tried everything. I mean, if you look at how they've also stumbled in the Champions Cup, they've stumbled in the quarterfinals, they stumbled in the semi-finals, they've stumbled in the finals. So there is one could say that the Bulls have developed a choking mentality, but you also need to look at Leinster. Yes, Leinster do have a decorated trophy past, but their present in the moment in terms of actually getting through and winning trophies is rather problematic for them.
Indeed. And perhaps, Michael, we can speak to, when you look at both of these teams, it's international players everywhere. So a lot of quality in both sides. In terms of the crucial battles we're looking at in tomorrow's finals, who do you think will have the upper hand when we look at those forwards?
Well, when you look at the forwards,
you would imagine
you would imagine the Vodacom Bulls have got the upper hand there. They've got probably the best scrum in the competition, and they showed it against the Sharks again as well. So you'd expect them to have the upper hand there. Yes, they are missing Cameron Hanekom, but Marcel Coetzee at the back brings a different kind of physicality as well. I think, the aerial battle is going to be key. I think players like Canan Moody and James Lowe, how they react under the high ball and the kind of service they give their players thereafter is going to be important as well. But yes, for the Vodacom Bulls, they've got to just try and stop the kind of momentum that Leinster roll into and start gaining in a match. They showed it against the Glasgow Warriors. Once they start getting on the front foot, they're very difficult to stop when those passes stop flowing around. So yes, it's Jake White says it's the Vodacom Bulls versus Ireland. So there's a lot of experience that they're up against.
Indeed. Now, Khanyiso, something that we've also seen with these teams is that they're both able to find those try lines, both sides. When we look at that battle in terms of being able to get those tries across, what do you see that looking like?
Look, I think the Bulls will have their hands full in terms of actually keeping Leinster out and also trying to breach Leinster's try line. If you remember that through the Champions Cup, Leinster actually blanked their first 2 opponents in the playoffs, even though things went rather haywire for them in their semi-final against the Northampton Saints. So I think one of the things that the Bulls have done well is that they've been able to find different ways of scoring tries, and I think what and Michael just alluded to it now, that the Leinster have a multi-phase play that is actually adopted by Ireland, and that works for them. But I think what may be a bit of a struggle for Leinster in particular is now how do they actually keep shifting the contact point, because what the Bulls have done well from a defensive perspective is to look after the different contact points, the different points of attack, where what Leinster, you could say to an extent, what Ireland do is that they're always trying to shift the point of attack, and that's where they were quite superior against a very good Glasgow side. I think what John Teat in particular has done well, has been able to screen the Bulls defense very well, but I think how the Bulls then managed to do it over 80 minutes against a team that moves the ball quite well. And I think if you look at James Lowe becomes so important in terms of the kicking game, because one of the parts that Leinster dominate very well is the kicking game. And if the Bulls were able to win it last week, are able to also win the aerial game again this week, I think that'll be another important aspect of the game.
All right, Michael, I'm going to put it to you now. It's the URC final. Both teams looking for their first win in the current format of the game. Which way do you think this final is going to go?
Well, I think Jake White hit the nail on the head in yesterday's press conference, and he told the Irish media all of South African rugby is behind the Vodacom Bulls. He said it, whether you're a Stormer, a Shark, or whatever, whichever team you support. And so yes, I would imagine this is like I said, this Vodacom Bulls team is a lot better prepared, and I think is quietly confident. They're well aware of the challenge that Leinster brings, and it will be a significant challenge. And I think they go into this eyes wide open and ready for that challenge.
Well, Michael, the only South African we know so far that is not on the side of the Bulls must be Jacques Ninaba, right? Let's speak then, Khanyiso, from your vantage point, where you see this final going and where this game will be won and lost.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if the game of this nature goes down to extra time. I mean, these teams, when you look at them, they are closely matched. I think in all departments, they're pretty much they're pretty much even. Goal kicking is going to be very important. I think the Bulls are very happy to have a Johan Goosen back, even though I kind of worry about his match management. He went missing, last year's final against Glasgow. So I think he's got a personal point to prove. But I think what the Bulls have done so well is actually being able to strengthen their bench. Last year they were unable to win the game from the bench, even though they were quite behind in every stretch of the game against the Glasgow Warriors last season. I think also the Bulls are under less pressure. The Bulls have lost the final in Cape Town. They've lost the final in Pretoria. So they know how it feels to be on the losing side, on the other side of the losing stick. They're in Dublin. You'd find that, yes, they will be under pressure against what probably will be 75 to 80,000 crowd. But the Bulls literally just need to go there and win. And the weight of expectation on Leinster's shoulders is absolutely massive, because they are this well-assembled team. The bulk of the IRFU's resources are put into making this Leinster team work, because a healthy Leinster is a healthy Ireland. Now, when you realize South Africa is that you've got a lot of teams that contribute. I mean, even Rasta said at yesterday's press conference that he's backing the Bulls, even though he's very close to Jacques Ninaba. So for Leinster, it's there to win, but the Bulls just need to just go out with the right mentality and do the business.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Michael Vlismas, thank you so much, all the way from Dublin, joining us virtually, as well as Khanyiso Tshwaku joining us in studio, commentator, analyst, and of course sport journalist, speaking all things the URC final. It is a Leinster led by Jacques Ninaba that take on a Jake White Bulls side in the final.